home where we are planted, with nowhere else to go. We watch the rivers wander, but never touch the flow. The creatures cross the meadows, the seasons come and go. We watch the children running, free to wander where they please. We watch the lovers find each other, then give their hearts away. They speak the words we cannot speak, they hold what we can't hold. Their lives go on long after ours, while ours are gone too soon. We have a life, but not a choice. We have a world, but not a voice. We see them come, we see them leave. We watch them love, we watch them grieve. And every year we bloom again. We greet the sun, we drink the rain. Then our petals fall, our colors wane, until our roots can bloom no more. But tell us, why were they allowed to chase the wind across the ground? Why were they given a will of their own? Why was our fate carved into stone? You gave us life, but never asked what we wished to be. The gods heard voices rising from every corner of the earth. They heard the wish of flowers who questioned why they'd been given life. They did not call their longing wrong, nor turn away from what they heard. They knew how to shape a man from earth, but never one from flower or bloom. Yet still they chose to grant their wish and make what they had never made before. They called one from every kind of flower and bade the chosen gather at their call. When all the chosen flowers had arrived, the gods spoke to them once again. You say that had you been given a choice, you would not have chosen to be flowers. If we had been asked what we wished to be, we would have chosen to live as men. So be it. If human life is what you seek, we shall make a single human from you, shaped as you desire. Choose the finest parts within your kind, your fairest beauty, your noblest virtues, the qualities of body and soul you prize. Tell us what you chose among yourselves. We shall gather your chosen gifts and make your wish a breathing thing. A gaze that no one could resist. The rose gave her lips like crimson buds, the gates of heaven where endless peace is spread. The lily gave her skin so pure and white, the snow itself looked dark beside its hue. The tulip gave her cheeks their rosy bloom, a color even wine would envy. The delphinium gave her slender frame, so tall and graceful, reaching toward the sky. The orchid gave her neck its delicate curve, so fine the gentlest breeze might hurt it. The jasmine gave her scent its sweetest spell, a fragrance that would linger long after. The magnolia gave her skin its softness, like dew that settles through the night. The rose gave her knowledge of evil. The carnation gave her loyalty, a devotion that would never turn away. The violet gave her forgiveness, so nothing from the past could weigh her down. The chrysanthemum gave her patience, the strength to wait through all that may come. The clematis gave her reason to think, to question, and find her own answers. The snowdrop gave her courage to face whatever trials life may bring. When the flowers had given all they had, the gods looked upon what they had made. They saw her body shaped from beauty, and all the virtues gathered in her soul. Yet one thing still remained to give her life, one thing no flower could have known. The gods bestowed on her human love, love unknown to flowers. Then they breathed their own breath into her, and she opened her eyes beneath the sky. They called her Minveria, a name the world had never heard before. The flowers rejoiced to hear the name and spoke it all together as one. Minveria. 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 Understood her well, for parts of themselves lived on in her. The flowers told her to make her home in that hidden valley, surrounded by mountains. They saw her as one of their own and watched over her with tender care. But one day she asked them, why am I different? I speak with you, yet I am not like you. The flowers answered, you were made to live as they do. Our reason for being is not the same as yours. Like you, they are called human, and so are you. Their lives are life far different from ours. They love, they suffer, they leave, they grieve. But you are not yet ready for their world. When you are, we will show you where it lies. And wondered what that distant world was like. As the days passed, she asked them time and again, when will I be ready to see that world? Not yet. The flowers always told her, one day, but not yet. The flowers often wondered when that day would come, but they never felt she was ready to leave. Far beyond the hidden valley lived a man who had searched for love his whole life lovers walking hand in hand, and wondered why such love had passed him by. He asked the heavens night after night, is there no one in this world meant for me? He prayed each day and never tired, yet still the skies gave no reply. But the gods had heard him long before, and waited for the hour to answer him. At last the gods heard his endless prayers, and decided that his waiting was over. For all the years he'd longed for love, they would finally answer his prayer. Hoping the gods would answer him at last. He traveled many days and nights, until the roads grew strange and hard to trace. He had never been so far from home, and soon he lost the road he meant to take. Then through the mist appeared an old man's cart, drawn slowly by a pair. Take you there. With nowhere else to turn, the man climbed, and the road grew quiet beneath the fading light, and the weariness soon lulled him into sleep. When morning came, he opened up his eyes and found himself beneath the foreign sky. The old man and the cart were nowhere to be found. Before him stood a valley hidden by mountains. Stranger in the valley, and whispered word from bloom to bloom. Soon every flower knew a man had come, and warned her to stay hidden. High above, the gods watched in silence, and the old man who brought him there stood among them. Before him stretched a world he had never known. Rare flowers blooming beneath the mountains, he wandered among them, trying to understand what strange land had brought him so far from home. Then he saw a little house among the flowers. The thought that someone lived there filled him with wonder. He approached the door and called, "Is anyone there?" For the first time she heard a voice that was neither her own nor the flowers. She She hid herself in fear and waited for the voice to fall silent. The man touched the door and it opened. He stepped inside and saw her. She stared at him with frightened eyes, more beautiful than any woman he had ever seen. A beauty that seemed almost divine. He stood before her speechless, unable to find a single word. For a moment, neither of them moved. She watched him as he watched her. He stood before her, lost in wonder, while she stayed hidden in silent fear. He wanted to speak but found no words, while she remained hidden in the corner. Do not be afraid, he said softly, I will not hurt you. He slowly knelt before her and gave her a warm, gentle smile. He reached his hand out, but she flinched and drew back. He waited, then took her hand and helped her slowly to her feet. Who are you? Do you live here alone? Yes, she answered. Where are you from? How did you find this place? I was born here, I have lived here all my life. Something in her answer struck him strange, and he could not understand her. I was traveling to a sacred place, he told her, where every prayer is said to be heard. I lost my way and somehow found myself here. She looked at the first man she had ever seen and remembered what the flowers had told her. This must be the kind of man they had spoken of. And as he stood before her, still lost in wonder, he thought only one thing: how fortunate he was to have lost his way. While she watched him with quiet curiosity. He asked about the valley and the flowers, and she told him all that she knew. She spoke of flowers that talked among themselves, of mountains no one had ever crossed. He listened, unsure of what to believe, yet every word rang true. When she spoke, she asked him about the world beyond the valley, about the people she had only heard of. He told her of roads and distant cities, of crowded streets and lives beyond her own. She listened as if he were telling her a dream of a world she had imagined but never seen. As they spoke, her fear began to fade until his presence no longer frightened her. For the first time, she was not alone. And for the first time, he wished to stay. Days passed like dreams. He walked beside her through the quiet valley and listened as she spoke with every flower. She showed him every path among the blooms, every place she had known since birth. He told her stories of the world beyond, of distant lands and people he had known. She She asked him questions without end, and he was glad to answer everyone. Watched them walk side by side, and slowly lost their fear of him. They saw the way he smiled whenever she spoke, and how her eyes grew brighter when he came. Above them, the gods watched in silence, and saw the life they had given her unfold. Neither spoke of love nor knew its name, yet something quietly began to grow. Days became weeks, the weeks passed by, until he no longer thought of leaving. He woke each morning hoping to see her, and sought her out before the day began. She waited for his footsteps every evening, and smiled whenever she heard him come near. They walked beneath the trees together, and spoke until the light had left the sky. Sometimes they said nothing at all, yet silence never felt empty. Taken root before their eyes, and for a while the valley knew no sorrow, only two hearts learning love. As if it had learned to beat for her alone. He loved her more with every passing day, until one day he could hold it back no more. I love you, he said, more than words can tell. I never knew love could feel like this. She heard his words and felt her whole world change, for no one had ever loved her before. Her heart beat with a joy she had never known, and she knew she loved him just as deeply. They grew closer with each passing day, until neither could imagine life without. They held each other beneath the open sky, and gave themselves completely to love. Then they kissed beneath the ancient trees, and made the stars witnesses to their union. They shared their nights without fear, woke beside each other every morning. The flowers watched them and rejoiced for the love they had once dreamed of, now lived before them. She told the flowers how happy she had become, and they shared in every joy she felt. The gods looked down upon her happiness and deemed the joy within her good. And for a long while, nothing troubled their love. The valley knew nothing but joy. Those happy days lasted for a few months, while joy remained pure and sorrow had no place. But such days were never meant to last forever, and slowly something in him changed. The fire that once burned within his heart grew softer, settling into something calm. He still loved her more than words could say, but love no longer burned as it once had. The days grew familiar, soft and still, and nothing felt as new as it had before. He knew her smile, her voice, her every thought, and knew the way she would reach for his hand. At first he thought this was the deepest love, a love that needed nothing more than this. But then a question entered his mind: if my passion has faded, was it ever real? He did not know that passion could change with time into affection, into habit, into devotion. He only knew that what he felt was no longer the same, and took the change as a sign that love was fading. As the days grew familiar, the doubt grew stronger, and slowly it took hold of his heart like ink dissolving in clear water. The doubt spread through everything he felt, until one day the doubt grew too strong, and he decided that he had to leave. At first the change was small, so small she could not name it. He spent less time beside her, and his answers grew shorter each day. He spoke less and wandered alone along the paths they used to walk together. When she held him close, something felt different. His kisses no longer carried the same warmth. She could feel him slipping away, but could not understand why. The flowers noticed it before she did, and whispered among themselves in fear. We have seen this happen to other people. This is how the sorrow begins. This is the sign we feared would come, the beginning of what follows love. But they kept their fear from her, unable to watch her happiness fade. And then one morning she woke alone. He was gone. She woke that morning and found him gone, thinking he had only gone nearby. She searched the valley, calling out his name, but only the flowers answered her. She waited for him until the sun went down, believing he would return before nightfall. But he never came. The next morning she waited again, watching the paths for some sign of his return. She asked the flowers, "Have you seen him?" But they said nothing. Another day passed and still he did not return. She asked again, "Where has he gone?" The flowers could no longer hide the truth. He has left the valley, they finally told her. He has gone back to the world of men. She stood in silence, unable to understand why he had left without saying goodbye. She stood, never known that someone could leave her, and did not know what it meant to be left behind. For the first time, a tear fell from her eyes. And with it she learned what tears meant. The flowers wept beside her, while the gods watched closely from above. She fell into a silence no one could reach, and spoke to the flowers less than before. The smile had vanished from her face, and sorrow sat The flowers tried to speak to her, but she lost herself in sorrow, answering coldly or turning away. The aftermath of love consumed her slowly, wounding both her body and her soul. And the flowers could do nothing but watch, helpless as she weakened day by day. One morning she woke to a strand of hair beside her, part hair, part hyacinth, already dry and pale. She carried it outside and asked the flowers, "What is happening to me?" The flowers gathered around her, but none knew the answer. High above, the gods saw what had happened and understood what had begun. Then the change began to spread. Her right arm began to wither, and slowly other parts of her body followed. Where her skin withered, it turned to flower, dry and faded as though its season had passed. The flowers watched their gentle creation wither before them and cried out to the gods for help. Please hear our voices. The being you created is withering away. All the flowers wept as one, begging the gods to save her. Then the gods descended from above and stood among the flowers. What is happening to her? The flowers cried. Why is her body changing? Why is she withering? The gods looked upon her and finally spoke. For the first time, we created a human from flowers, and we even did not know what would follow. We gave her the love that belonged to humankind, a feeling no flower had ever truly known. She could love and be loved and know the joy that love could bring. But when the man she loved left her, she faced all that follows when love is lost. The longing, the loneliness, the disappointment, the feeling of being left behind. A human heart may carry such things and still go on. But she had been made from flowers. Her nature could not bear what followed, and so her body began to wither. If her sorrow continues, she will wither completely and die and die. Then the gods rose once more into the heavens, leaving the flowers weeping beside her. The flowers now understood what was happening and gathered around her in sorrow. They spoke to her gently and told her the truth. They brought her the flowers she loved most and filled the air with their sweetest fragrance. They told her stories of the withering and dying filled the gods with anger. They had given her love from their own divine realm, and given him the love he had prayed for all his life. They did not appear before him. They looked upon him from above and passed their judgment. They would not take his life, nor would they stop him from living as he wished. He would still be free to go where he wanted, to speak to whom he wished, and to love again. But the gods would take two things from him: the happiness and peace he had once known. Just as he had taken them from her, they would now take them from him. For the rest of his life, wherever he went, whatever he did, whoever he met, whoever he loved, happiness would always remain beyond his reach. He would still be able to love, but peace would never find its way back to him. His sentence was a lifetime of unhappiness and unrest. Descended into the valley, drawn there by the flowers' endless cries. They stood among the flowers in silence and looked upon what remained of her. Why did you let this happen? Why did you give her a heart that could break? We gave her everything she needed to live, yet the love you gave her became her death. The flowers wept before the gods and asked why she had been made to suffer. The gods looked upon the withered flower, and at last they spoke. You wished to know what it meant to be human, to live as they live and love as they love. Now you know. To be human is to love, and to love is to know both joy and pain. Every life carries a price of its own, and now you have learned what that price can be. Every being was made for its own nature. A flower must be a flower, and a human must be.